Hi, and welcome to Beyond Borders, the LU Off-Campus Programs podcast. My name is Lillian Sandberg. I'm your host, and today I have an amazing guest with me. Would you like to introduce yourself?
I'm Sam Forrester, as people know me on campus. That's not my government name, but yeah, that's who I am.
I guess, can you tell us, what's your major, what year are you, stuff like that?
Yeah, so I'm double majoring between biochemistry and music.
Wow.
Both the BAs, not in the con. I was in the con, but that's hard.
Yeah.
And I'm a super senior because I did the term that I studied abroad, did kind of push things back, but it's not like I regret it at all, but It is what it is, yeah.
Okay. And where did you study abroad?
I studied abroad in Taiwan.
Okay, cool. Did you also do a summer program?
I did do a summer program with College, like my sophomore summer.
Okay.
I really liked that too.
Interesting. So which program did you decide on first? And then, how did you decide to do the summer one, which it sounds like is the first one?
You mean chronologically?
Yeah.
Okay, so the first one I did, College, it was the summer after my sophomore year, between my junior year, and I thought it would be fun to do it because the credits would transfer back here. So I was like, that's obviously a win-win, and also I didn't have any other opportunities that summer to really do an internship or to go out, and I thought going to Minnesota would be really fun to at least try. So I applied, I got in, and then I was like, heck yeah, let's get going. And then I was in Minnesota for about 4-ish weeks, to kind of just studying the forests and learning about the wilderness. And it was really fun, really healing too.
Yeah.
But the mosquitoes were awful.
Yeah.
I can't forget that.
The mosquitoes.
Literally insane.
The Midwest is I feel like they underestimate how bad the mosquitoes can get up here sometimes.
Yeah.
So,
especially in the forest, and we were on the lake, so we had to kayak throughout the entire thing. And of course, where there's water, there's mosquitoes. And so there were so many mosquitoes to the point where we had to carry the canoes across the paths to get from lake to lake to travel through. But every time we got out, I just remembered covering myself, even my face, with a net, because they would just swarm you, and all you had to do was carry the canoe, so you couldn't you can't them off.
Yeah.
So that was the worst part. Or if you had to you're in a moment of vulnerability, if you had to go to the bathroom, you had to be okay, get them away from me.
Oh my gosh.
I mean that's the worst part, but
yeah.
It was a good program otherwise.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to also, this might make sense in the flow, but I was going to ask you about that kayak canoe trip.
Oh, yeah.
Because I know that a lot of people, that's one of the things that they advertise. And so I was hoping you would kind of tell us about that.
I kayaked before when I was a lot younger, but never to the extent like that. Because the main focus is that you literally travel, was it 6 days? I think 6 total days at least, traveling across the Minnesota lakes, because there's so many different lakes in Minnesota, very small ones, big ones, shaped ones. And so there's these paths we would follow where we would just kayak through these little pockets of lakes and then just stop for the night and then wake back up and just keep traveling, carrying our canoes, carrying the food on our backs. Most of the travel was through the water, but it was really, really fun. I mean, I couldn't use my phone, which is the worst part. But
did you guys even bring your phones out there, or because of the water and stuff? I would be scared to drop it in.
We brought it, but we kept it in little Ziploc bags just to make sure that they were okay. But it was for emergency sakes.
Gotcha, right.
If we had GPS or had some signals that we can call someone.
Yeah. And so did you guys sleep in tents? So you also had to carry or travel with the tents in your bags and stuff?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh my gosh.
So there was I think a total of 7 of us, 1 professor plus 6 students, and we had I think a total of 3 tents. And so we had to pack that up in these big, massive bags. We had big 4 bags total with all of our stuff, plus all the food that we had to hold on us. And we would just carry that in the canoe. And then when we carried the canoes across, we would just make multiple trips, carrying the canoe over our heads with 2 people per canoe, plus the bags. And we had different types of canoes too. We had a plastic one, a metal one. I think we had 2 plastic ones. So people would switch between canoeing the metal one the plastic one because it would glide more, but it required more power. So we would always just be switching like jobs of who carries what if we weren't like just canoeing.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow, that's crazy. And so, I assume that kind of experience would make you either like have a really good relationship with the people you're on that trip with, or the opposite, like being stuck with somebody I disliked for like 6 days out in the middle of the woods. I feel like I wouldn't enjoy. But did you feel like that kind of trip helped like make some friendships or anything like that?
Not friendships that I've kept
Okay.
long term. I
Yeah.
actually don't know where all
Any
those
of
other
them?
people went, except one person I still am Snapchat friends with.
Okay.
But we just don't really talk.
I mean, it's been like what, 3 years?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I feel like that's understandable.
Yeah. But otherwise, regardless of whether the people that you went on the trip with, it is mostly you a lot of the times too, even if you're talking to like your canoe mates or if you're in the same tent. You would just be like canoeing for hours, so you just like be in this solitary moment of just monotonous movement,
Yeah.
keeping the flow, keeping the movement, and then it'll just be you and nature and like taking in everything around you at that point.
Yeah, that sounds really cathartic in a
Yeah.
nice way.
There's actually one memory from the trip that I think about a lot, where we were in the middle of the lake and it started to absolutely rain, pouring down rain on all of us. And to the point that everything around us was fogged up and it was just us in the middle of this lake, dark sky in the rain, but it was also so calm. And the water was so flat and still, and you would see like the little plinks of water and you would just see it kind of shimmer, and it was just us alone on the water floating in nothingness. And it was so pretty, and I was like, man, I gotta snapshot this in my brain forever.
Yeah, that sounds so neat.
Yeah.
And so when you were on that trip, did you come across like anyone else that wasn't on the trip with you, or were you guys just out there
Or like
alone?
other travelers?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, fair amount. Because sometimes we would pass through lakes that was near like boat houses, and people were like
gotcha.
boats. They would like just there were other people be canoeing too. We found like a Girl Scout troop on like a little shorter route, and it was because there's so many lakes that the trails like intertwine, or we go along the same path and then diverge. But yeah.
Cool. Did this domestic program kind of inspire you at all to do the full study abroad, or was that just a whole separate, like you were wanting to study abroad no matter what kind of thing?
It's definitely unrelated in the sense that I just want to do both programs.
Gotcha.
Like the co-college came up suddenly. It was offered in one of my like bio classes sophomore year, and people were like, oh, it's a great program. And again, I was like, I don't think I have anything else to do, so I did it, and it sounded like a really fun opportunity for me. But studying abroad was something that I've always wanted to do, that I was very unsure if I was able to, because I am a biochem and music double major.
Yeah.
So it wasn't really viable in the sense of like that wouldn't relate to my studies. But sophomore year was also the same year that I started actually pursuing my Mandarin classes, and that's something that I've wanted to do for a long time.
Holy cow. So you're biochem and music and your language is Mandarin?
Well, maybe. Okay, it's been a. Yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy. Oh my goodness.
Well, okay. I haven't been able to do a lot of Mandarin since, because biochem and music. But I've also like understood that if I'm going to be here for something, it's going to be something like specific for biochem, because it's hard to get like experience like that outside of a institution.
Right.
But after I started taking those classes and I started looking at studying abroad, I was like, what if I just made this crazy decision and applied, and maybe I can get in? And I said, okay, let's do that. And then I did, and I was accepted into the program, and I was like, wow, well, this is a reality now.
Right, yeah.
And at first I applied to the Shanghai CET program, because CET has a lot of programs everywhere.
Okay.
And then I was looking at the Taiwan program, and I was comparing the courses specifically, because Taiwan had the intensive Mandarin. I wanted to really juice out the knowledge.
Yeah.
And I guess I liked it a lot more, especially because I just ended up taking like an intensive class and then one elective, versus Shanghai would be like a general I want to say low energy. I don't know what's the energy type versus, but it would be like one class plus 4 other classes.
Got you. So the primary focus of your program was to learn and like immerse yourself in Mandarin as a language. Yeah.
Most definitely. And like Taiwan uses Mandarin. The only difference is like they use traditional characters. So I did have to learn a whole new system. It wasn't that different.
Okay.
And I'm kind of happy because some of the same characters you can read in Japanese.
Huh.
But other than that, it's like the accent, and it was like actually I think the accent is a lot easier to understand in Taiwan than for like mainland China.
Really?
Yeah.
That's so interesting.
From my perspective,
yeah,
of course.
Of course. So I guess I've never been to Asia before. I studied in Europe. And so there were definitely culture shocks for me going to Europe, but generally lots of things were similar. How did that kind of work for you in Taiwan? What was like some of the bigger culture shock things? Yeah, just speak to that a little.
Yeah, I've been trying to collect my thoughts about that for a bit because I definitely got shocked, but like it was in very little ways. Like when you went to a restaurant, there was no tipping. It was already like if there was a service charge, it was already put into the bill, so you didn't have to calculate. Or if you asked for water, they would serve you warm water, or even just water through a tea. Because sometimes with like smaller restaurants, they don't trust the plumbing sometimes, but it also just helps to like kill the bacteria, and it's also like a cultural thing to serve warm water because it doesn't shock your system.
Interesting.
Or I was thinking that. Oh, and also real money. It's been so long since I've used like dollars, especially coins in the U.S. But if you go to Taiwan, you need to buy a coin purse. Like I would start looking for coin purses because I was like, man, this is so useful. And I would just get bags and bags of coins, and I would just be like, man, I don't know what to do with these.
Okay, that's so crazy.
And then I eventually started using them for the vending machines. But the vending machines at the school that I went to, they had like instant ramen inside for students. They had like a bunch of different types of like milk teas. Milk tea is very popular in Taiwan. They were delicious, and there was so many like additives in like the vending machines. Other than that, like I think what kind of shocked me a little bit is I was in Taipei, the capital city. It's so convenient there in the sense of like the convenience stores, like 7-Eleven. 7-Eleven is everywhere. It's a chain. You can buy breakfast, lunch, and dinner from 7-Eleven, and it actually be like kind of delicious. I would constantly get like they would repackage food fresh every day, like put out new bread every day, eggs, like milk, water, all like the basic food stuff, and they also had like basic student supplies, basic cleaning supplies. Like I could live off of 7-Eleven if I really wanted to.
Yeah,
and I kind of did. But that was like one of the main things, this convenience of it, like being able to take a bus literally anywhere and everywhere. Biking was so normal, and there would be like bike stations everywhere. So normal to the point I saw a woman carry a baby with one hand, rent a bike, get on it, and ride away. And I was like,
gosh.
Wow.
If I saw that in the States, I would be like, what is going on?
I feel like I would call the police in the US because I'd be like, this feels like child endangerment. But the way she did it so seamlessly with such confidence, like the grace of a swan, I was like, you know what?
I mean, power to you, I guess.
That's amazing. And she probably like saved so much money with that trip.
That's so crazy.
But yeah.
Interesting.
I think like those components kind of like not surprised me, it made me get used to it, let's say.
Yeah.
And also just how easy it is to eat out. Like barely, I feel like it's normal to not have a kitchen in your apartment because there's so many places around that are kind of cheap and just so easy to get something to eat, like literally every block.
That's really cool. Is that a direct enrollment in like the University of Taipei, or what was the where did you study?
So I was at the Taiwan National University.
Okay.
NTU, well, not National Taiwan. So, and I always get the acronyms wrong. But at NTU, and we were through a study abroad program, CET. They have multiple programs around the world. They have like CET programs in Europe, South America, a bunch of different places in Asia. And so that's kind of the program I was in, that was like a liaison between NTU and Lawrence. And Lawrence already recognizes CET as a program, so I just had to choose it from the website and then have to like apply separately to be like, hey, take my credits.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
So everything you took transferred back here and it was all good and easy,
Yeah.
right? So I'm assuming because it was that immersion-based situation that most of, if not all of your classes were in Mandarin?
Actually,
or
no.
was it English?
It was English.
Really?
Yeah. That was the other thing too. Like all my classmates were, I think all of them, if not all of them, most of them, no, most of them were US students too. So I didn't take classes with other like Taiwanese students. I took classes with like other study abroad students who were from different parts of the country. So we would just like have these classes kind of in English. Even the elective class, which was like a film class, was totally taught in English, which was something that I was kind of surprised by. It made things definitely easier,
Right.
in a sense, but it wasn't like the full immersion. And even then, I like housing situation. I was just living with like these other students too, so we would just talk English at home too because it was easy. Sometimes we would try to speak in Mandarin, but then we'd be like, oh, where's the deodorant? Yeah.
Right. That totally makes sense. So housing wise, you were rooming with other study abroad students. Was it dorm style? Like, did you have a roommate? Did you share an apartment? What was the sort of situation?
So it was actually an apartment on like one section of the city.
Okay.
All the different students that were studying abroad were in different sections of the city, so each got like their own local pocket. We were in like the northwest from NTU, and like we traveled from the Brown Line and transferred to the Orange Line to get to school. But we were literally just in our own apartment in our own neighborhood, and it was five abroad students and then one Taiwanese local student who kind of wasn't really there a lot. We get it, he got his own life. But the apartment we had like 4 bedrooms, and me and one of our other roommates had like the single room because that's what we requested, and then everyone else had a roommate. So it was like 2-2-1-1 basically.
Interesting.
Yeah. So that was definitely like the immersed part, because then we would just go out and adventure around trying to find a place to eat. We would go out together to go to like the shopping malls. It was fun.
Nice. That's really cool. And so tell me a little bit about like, what is it like to live in Taipei? Were you regularly speaking Mandarin out there, or is it kind of like the European ones where you can find someone who speaks English at most places?
You can I feel like it was definitely possible to find someone who spoke English enough to get your point across generally, but otherwise I personally struggled speaking Mandarin around people. It was just my own thing because I'm very shy, especially the first time in a country. Generally, other than that, I was able to at least get some basic words across. Like if I was just looking, like one time I was looking for bleach, and I was just asking the very basic question, and they're like, oh, just pointed at the product, and I was like, oh, 谢谢, just went and bought it. But other than that, it wasn't like hard to find someone who spoke English, especially when they looked at me, because when people look at me, they'd be like, oh, hello, and I'd be like, okay, well, I'm just gonna speak in English now because they're excited to talk to me in English.
Right.
Which, yeah, it was interesting.
Very cool.
Actually, that reminds me of another culture shock.
Okay, let's hear it.
In Taiwan, it's a very homogenous society, especially outside the city, outside of Taipei. So people would just look at us a lot.
Yeah.
They would just stare at us. I remember a lot of people just looking at me, which is something new.
Right.
For me personally, but
especially if you are more of a shy or reserved person, I'm sure that was a little like, what's happening?
Once or twice in the streets, sometimes people ask me where I'm from, and I was like, interesting. Well, I'm from here. So yeah. Yeah,
I can't imagine what that must have been like. Okay, this is just out of my personal curiosity because I'm a gov major. Did you talk to anyone about like the political situation between Taiwan and China out of my own curiosity? Get a vibe on that at all?
It's been like over a year since I remember the conversations about it.
Yeah.
But it was something that I remember my roommates would talk a lot about it
Uh-huh.
with people, and I would be there to try and listen if I could.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember the attitude about it, but every time the conversation would come up, it would always also be like a run through of the history of Taiwan,
Right.
when it was like taken over by Japan for 100
Mm-hmm.
years, and then it was left to its own devices, and then taken over by
China.
mainland China,
Mm-hmm.
and then seeing a lot of like the historical like influence over it over the years.
Right.
But like other than that, I mean, what I do remember, and I can't tell you, is like apart from that, like it's kind of its own functioning society.
Yeah.
Like I saw like its own elections, it would have its own polls, even though I couldn't understand it.
Mm-hmm.
It felt the same in like the US. It's just in the sense of like being like under the umbrella of like China, basically,
Okay.
without it being China, because it's its own like indigenous identity.
Interesting. That's really
Yeah.
cool. Did you do any outside traveling while you were there? Like, since you were in the area, did you go see anything else?
Most definitely.
Okay.
The CET programs also offers a lot of like opportunities to move around.
Uh-huh.
We took a trip up north and did like a small program where we also cleaned up the beach a little bit. We went
Oh.
yeah, it was really cool. We learned, I personally learned what it meant for microplastics in the beach, because it was crazy out there actually seeing all the little stuff that we couldn't pick up.
Huh.
But apart from that, we also traveled to the like center of more to the center of Taiwan, and like me and three other roommates that were able to make it, we would like take there's like a bullet train now that goes along the west coast of Taiwan only. So that's the only way we could travel, because we couldn't drive along the east coast. But we went all the way down to Taichung, the center city, and along the way we were able to also stop and look at like the country, and we saw like rice patches, and we saw just like flat land surrounded by mountains with like really beautiful blue skies. And we even made a trip to a capybara farm.
Oh.
Where we like not played, but like touched the capybaras, fed them palm fronds that they gave us.
Huh.
And they also had other animals too, like massive tortoises, baby kangaroos. I have a picture of a capybara in the water with an orange on his head, like an iconic meme photo.
Oh my gosh.
And it was definitely worth it,
Uh-huh.
and a little hassle to get there, but we did travel around to multiple places. We even saw the Green Onion Museum.
Green Onion Museum.
I couldn't read any of it,
Uh-huh.
unfortunately, because I wasn't that good. But it was just talking about like the history of green onions used in like recipes, and like how important it is in Taiwanese
like
cuisine. Yeah, and even at the end there was a little shop where they had like, a friend showed us that there's like these crackers with like green onion shavings and nougat in the center that are sweet and a little bitter, and they had green onion ice cream.
Oh my goodness, that would stress me out a little bit, I think.
Yeah, I tried it. It just tasted like cold green onions. It was kind of good, but in like a green onion way.
But so it wasn't. Was it sweet?
No,
it was.
It tastes
just
like green
a green onions, but cold.
It was a green onion ice cream.
I normally associate like just ice cream in general with something sweet. But
exactly. No. But I tasted it and I was like, you know what?
Okay, now what I'm imagining is if you like cream fried like French onion dip, like that you eat with your potato chips. That's is that at all similar?
I feel like it is, without the consistency of it being super creamy. Like I don't know how to explain it.
I feel like I might need to go to Taiwan to check out the green onion ice cream.
It would definitely be worth it. But it was just this tiny little place in like the middle of the country that we found it. We didn't. I don't know if we meant to find it or one person knew about it. We all went, but it was so worth it.
That's so cool. I think I'd be a little more weirded out by the green onion with the nougat situation. I think that would be a little.
Actually, it was kind of good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm hating on green onion flavored things.
If you spend like a term in Taiwan, you'll start to like really love them. Yeah, because it's just like it's in everything. You're like, wow, the flavor.
That's so cool.